It is not a typo. We didn't mix Morihiro Saito and Morihei Ueshiba. In 1932, Kiyoshi Nakakura married Matsuka Ueshiba, daughter of the founder of Aikido, and was legally adopted by Morihei into the Ueshiba family as Morihiro Ueshiba, thus becoming his officially designated successor.
Kiyoshi Nakakura was born on September 24, 1910, in the Kagoshima prefecture, from a farming family. Tetanus brought away his father when he was only 5 years old. Kiyoshi started practicing kendo from early childhood, and his energetic temperament soon caused him to excel in it. He made up his mind to become a professional budoka, and in 1927 joined the Daidokan Budo school at Kagoshima City, where for 2 years he eagerly dedicated himself full-time to kendo training under the guidance of Kanehiro Maruta-sensei. Maruta was a very strict old-fashioned teacher that didn't turn a blind eye to mistakes. One day Nakakura inadvertently stepped on a shinai and his teacher hit him hard with it, then told him,
"How could you step over a shinai, which stands for a real sword? Someone like you will never be able to become any good however much you practice or for however long. Quit now and go home."
Nakakura asked for forgiveness and after apologizing to the shinai, was left standing in the corridor with it raised above his head for the duration of the class. He was then pardoned and sent back to the students' dormitory. No matter how hard it was, he stuck with it and graduated in 1929, after which he was hired as a kendo teacher at the Daitosha Kogyo office in the Fukuoka prefecture. Nakayama Hakudo. The occasion of a school field trip to Tokyo, later in 1929, offered the 19-year-old Nakakura the opportunity to meet with the leading swordmaster Hakudo Nakayama. The reason for this was to antagonize his old teacher Maruta. While Nakakura was still at the Daidokan, Maruta had boasted that he would easily defeat Nakayama, and ended up instead being defeated by him in a kendo challenge. Once he heard that Nakakura was Maruta's student, Nakayama received him in his dojo, even though he had no recommendation letter. He also invited him to join training after getting one of his students to lend Nakakura the necessary kendo gear. After training, Nakayama asked Nakakura of his current occupation and was told that he taught kendo in school. Nakayama proceeded to advise him to change plans.
"You are still young and that's a waste of your time. Don't you want to come to Tokyo to practice?"
Kiyoshi went back to his school in the Fukuoka prefecture, resigned and left right away without taking care of anything else. On the same night, he took off without anyone knowing, with just his kendo gear in his pack. He walked for 2 hours to reach the nearest train station and caught the early morning service to Tokyo. Once in Tokyo, thanks to the financial support of his grandfather, he was ready to join Nakayama-sensei's famed Yushinkan Kendo dojo. Nakayama Hakudo was nicknamed the God of Kendo. His school, the Yushinkan, had become known for a trademark hard-style and aggressive type of training. It wasn't unusual for some of the students to be brought away on a stretcher before the end of a session. Nonetheless, the dojo was very popular and full of students. Not much time after entering the dojo, Nakakura asked his sensei to have a match, which Nakayama laughed away. Kiyoshi had never been beaten before and had great self-esteem and no fear of the Tokyo practitioners. In the Yushinkan dojo, there was already someone with similar temper and skills. His name was Junichi Haga. Haga agreed to have that match with Nakakura, with the intent of giving the country boy a wake-up lesson. The session became rough and ended in a fight with no victors. Nakayama-sensei had to step in to separate the two litigants. Twice a year, the Yushinkan dojo organized a grading match. In the first of these, in which Nakakura took part after entering the Yushinkan, he defeated 16 opponents in a row. In the autumn of 1930 he was part of a 3-member team that entered the Kodansha Yusho competition, a sort of contemporary All-Japan Kendo Championship. The Yushinkan's team included Junichi Haga, Kiyoshi Nakakura, and Isao Komuro. They reached the finals and won, defeating the Kagu Kaisatsu, the Imperial Guard team. After this triumph, Nakakura went from victory to victory for the following 10 years, when World War II disrupted every aspect of life in Japan. A subsequent trio, composed by Kiyoshi Nakakura, Junichi Haga, and Garatsu Nakajima became known as the Samba Garatsu, or the Three Crows, a Japanese equivalent of the Three Musketeers. In April 1931, Nakakura was invited to join the Imperial Guard and he accepted. Following a streak of prestigious tournament wins, his name became more and more famous.
Morihei needs a heir. Around the same time, Morihei Ueshiba had officially inaugurated his Kobukan dojo in Tokyo's Wakamatsucho, and was becoming one of the prominent names in contemporary Japanese Budo, as his 1932 appointment as chairman of the Budo Seneyokai, the Society for the Promotion of Martial Arts, clearly shows. Ueshiba had started having thoughts about the future of his life work, and wanted to find an heir that could be groomed as his successor in Aikibudo. Hatsu had given him a daughter, Matsuko, and 3 sons, of whom Takemori and Kuniharu had died in their infancy. Kishimura was born in 1921, and at the time, was only a 10-year-old boy whose future could not be pledged. He also had not appeared to be particularly interested in Budo training. Morihei turned to find an heir outside of his family. Morihei's daughter Matsuko was still unmarried, and Ueshiba considered arranging for her a suitable husband that could also continue the family martial tradition. It has to be understood that this was common practice, at a time when parents picked a marriage candidate based on elements other from personal feelings. In 1936, Ueshiba would also arrange the marriage of his niece Kiko to Tsutomu Yukawa, one of his best students. Potential candidates for Matsuko were all prominent personalities of the Budo Society, starting from Ueshiba's own foremost students. It would seem that Kenji Tamiki, Minoru Mochizuki, and Yoshio Sugino were considered and/or approached. It has to be remembered that over the years Ueshiba had developed a keen interest in the study of sword techniques. His newly established Kobukan had a separate kendo section, and later on, in May 1937, Morihei would also formally enroll in Kashima Shinto Ryu along with his student Zenzaburo Akazawa. They both signed a blood oath or keppen that still remains.
In 1932, through Hakudo Nakayama, Morihei Ueshiba met Kiyoshi Nakakura. As explained above, Kiyoshi was taking the Budo world by storm thanks to his fast-growing kendo fame. The two discussed the marriage, and, finally, Kiyoshi was chosen to marry Ueshiba's daughter. It was October 1932 and the wedding was officiated in the presence of Nakayama-sensei, who represented Kiyoshi's family. Admiral Isamu Takashita was also in attendance. At the same time, Ueshiba adopted Kiyoshi as his son, a common enough custom in Japan, and designated him as his Aikibudo successor. Kiyoshi took the name of Morihiro Ueshiba. Nakakura started an intense training regimen that included both Aikibudo and Kendo practice. During the following years, he eagerly trained in Aikibudo at the Kobukan under Ueshiba's guidance, while directing a Kendo club within Kobukan itself. He was referred to as Waka-sensei. Around that time Rinjiro Shirada joined the Kobukan, whose main active members were Yoichiro Inoue, Hisao Kamada, Hajime Iwata, Yoshio Sugino, Zenzaburo Akazawa, Shigemi Yonkawa, Tsutomu Yukawa, Masahiro Hashimoto, Kaoru Funahashi, and Minoru Mochizuki. Normally there were 2 morning and 3 evening sessions, while the Uchi Deshi had the mats to train to their heart's desire at all other times during the day.
Junichi Haga, Kiyoshi's fellow kendo wonder, used to visit him often at the Kobukan, and always paid his respects to Ueshiba, although he was never taught Aikido directly by him. At one stage, Nakakura and Haga had the brilliant idea of testing Morihei's martial skills, something that in those days wasn't unheard of. The two of them planned to attack him by surprise in the dojo before practice started. They had a go at Morihei together, one striking from the front and the other from the back. Ueshiba effortlessly evaded their coordinated strikes and threw Nakakura, then pinned Haga on the tatami. In July 1934, Morihiro Ueshiba left the Imperial Guard and dedicated even more time to train in Aikibudo, despite the fact that he kept teaching and competing in Kendo. He took a teaching position as a Kendo instructor at Hitotsubashi University and competed in some prestigious tournaments, such as the Seineikan Kendo Tahi Kai. This was organized by the Imperial Guard Kendo Club and was structured with progressive elimination bouts in order to select the 5 strongest kendoka. They would then proceed to compete with each other to decide the champion and the best kendo fighter in Japan. In 1935, Nakakura reached the final round of 5 and was crowned champion after 4 straight wins. It was Kiyoshi Nakakura that introduced Ueshiba to a good friend of his, Hisashi Noma, who started attending class at the Kobukan. Noma was a young up-and-coming kendoka of the time, a former member of the Yushinkan dojo. He was also the son of Seiji Noma, founder of Kodansha, the publishing company that later would print most Aikido bestsellers. Hisashi manifested an interest in taking photos of Morihei's trending Aikibudo techniques, and in 1936 a photo shoot was arranged in Noma's private Kendo dojo, producing 1,100 photographs. Shigemi Yonkawa, Gozo Shioda and Kishamura Ueshiba took ukami for Ueshiba, then 52 years old. A selection of these shots was used in Budo, Ueshiba's instruction manual produced in 1938 for internal use, and never made available to the general public until the 1980s. Anyone who has attended a Morihiro Saito seminar will remember how Saito-sensei would often show this book, repeating to his students, "O sensei, O sensei," as if to validate his technical explanation with the seal of approval of the founder's supreme authority.
The plan falls apart. In 1937, after 5 years of hard training in the Kobukan, however, Nakakura gave up Aikibudo and returned full-time to Kendo. Why did that happen? No doubt this traumatic event was caused by a combination of factors. The first and foremost one was of a technical nature, as candidly admitted by Nakakura.
I was practicing both Kendo and Aikido. Although I was practicing Aikido, I found Mr. Ueshiba to be superhuman and felt that I would never be able to master the techniques he was doing, and so would not be able to succeed him. I felt that I should not cling to the position as his successor. Then I went to see Nakayama-sensei and told him that I did not think I would be able to succeed him and would like to leave the Ueshiba family. Nakayama-sensei said that he understood but told me to wait, since he himself would go and talk to Mr. Ueshiba. It was just before I left the Kobukan. I departed in 1937.
Besides the above, it has also been suggested that Kiyoshi Nakakura did not particularly sympathize with his father-in-law's Omoto Kyo beliefs, and eventually grew tired and embarrassed by the relative political issues. Those exploded with the 1935 second Omoto incident, when Onisaburo Deguchi, Omoto Kyo's #1, was arrested, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs ordered that Ueshiba be seized as well. The Kobukan had Omoto Kyo religious items and several calligraphic works by Onisaburo Deguchi on display on the main wall. Ueshiba took them in special consideration. Nakakura went and tore them down, then proceeded with burning them, while Ueshiba was in Osaka risking arrest. At that time, Kenji Tomita, a student of Ueshiba and future cabinet minister, was the chief of the Criminal Law Bureau. Tomita knew that Ueshiba had nothing to do with the Omoto Kyo high treason charges that brought to the disbanding of the religion and the destroying of its headquarters. Tomita made sure that Ueshiba was not arrested. More importantly, the marriage with Matsuko did not work out, as demonstrated by the fact that the couple had no children. Be as it might, in 1937, the marriage ended with a divorce, and Nakakura left the Ueshiba family and Aikibudo to return to his previous total dedication to Kendo. Morihei Ueshiba was therefore left without his chosen heir, and started to consider the option of selecting his son Kishimaru as his successor. Morihei's decision in that sense turned out to be the single pivotal event in the history of the worldwide popularization of Aikido, of which the second dasha would be the preeminent driving force.
Kiyoshi Nakakura went ahead to become one of the 20th century's world foremost sensei in Kendo and Iido. He was instrumental in shaping post-war Kendo, and a very influential teacher. His record of victories in Kendo tournaments earned him the nickname of Musashi of the Showa era. He was appointed director of the Japanese Kendo Federation in April 1963, and had the honor to participate in a Kendo exhibition at the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. Nakakura was part of the panel of senior teachers who visited 8 European countries in 1969 to arrange the formation of the European Kendo Federation. In 1971, he was appointed manager of the Japan team for the second Kendo World Championships. Nakakura Sensei was the youngest teacher ever to receive the rank of 9th Dan in Kendo in 1978 and Iido in 1983. He passed away on February 9, 2000.